everybody. This is Brady Henderson from the First Baptist Church of Gaston, located in the Midlands of South Carolina, and we are live on the Menorah Podcast. This is a podcast that seeks to share, speak, and send the ministry of Jesus Christ all throughout the airwaves of the internet through podcast ministry. And Allen, I can't believe it, but we are already on episode 81. And I say that every week, and I'm not trying to be redundant by any means, but I want our listeners to know, and maybe I'm the only one that thought this, and maybe I hid it well from you, but when we first started this, I didn't really know how long we were going to be on the air. I didn't know if people were going to listen. I didn't know how all that was going to work, and here we are at 81, and this coming February, we'll celebrate our 2 years, so there we go.
Yeah, it seems like that things move along pretty quick. I believe our listeners probably know at this point that I was dragged along kicking and screaming into this adventure. I like the technology, the back end of things much more than being...
But then getting on the air and talking.
Yes,
Yeah.
So...
I did kind of pull you into that.
Yeah, but the more I do it, the more I find that I enjoy the conversations. I enjoy listening to the pastors, getting to hear their hearts and...
That's been a lot of fun.
How they've gotten into the ministry. I've enjoyed talking with the folks that we've talked with and the topics we've talked about.
Yeah, we've hit a lot of different things, and that kind of leads into today. I think before we go any further, though, I do want to pause. Today is September the 11th, 2025, which we know is the anniversary of 9/11. And if my math is correct, I believe this is the 24-year anniversary. You can't really ask me the question because I was like 2 years old, but I can ask you the question, where were you when?
I was at work, and we were rewiring some patch fields, and one of my record techs came in and said, the craziest thing just happened. An airplane flew into the World Trade Center. And we were just watching the Today Show, and, they were talking about it. It was obviously, and then... as we were watching, all of a sudden the second plane hit. And so now, of course, the news is just going nuts by then.
So the accident of it goes out of the question at that point?
By then, it was no longer an accident.
Well, were you suspicious before?
No thought.
No thought. Okay.
It was just, as far as I'm concerned, it was just, we didn't know whether it was a small plane or a big plane. Once we found out it was a bigger plane, then those guys, there is so much electronics in those airplanes.
Yeah.
There's auto land, there's auto takeoff, everything, that plane can control just about everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting, and I know in the history of the church, we broke a Sunday school record a few years ago. We had about 211 in Sunday school. And by the way, that's a great reminder for you to get back in Sunday school if you're not in it. And this is another good reminder. We've got a deacon ordination service this coming Wednesday night that takes a lot of extra planning and preparation, as well as our church is actually going to be feeding the Swansea High School football team on before their game against the War Horses of Barnwell High School on September the 19th. And so we're going to have to be all hands on deck for that as well. So, but I do remember being told while Fanning was here in 2001 that was the highest Sunday school attendance in a long time. And we were able to break that a few years ago we were able to break that record. But anyway, it held for a long time. 9/11 scared a lot of people. I do know that, and it's changed the world, I've been told. I don't, this is kind of an interesting viewpoint of it. I don't remember a world prior to 9/11. I was in a world, but I wasn't, cognizant enough to realize what's going on. But let's change gears a little bit, Allen, for the main discussion of today's episode. I do want to talk a little bit about what Lee Sanford shared this past Sunday. And so we want to have a short discussion on the Field of Dreams building vision. And what Lee shared, I've got his slides in front of me, and we do have a clip on the YouTube channel of Lee's talk, of Lee's message. And so it's about 6 minutes long, so you can find that on the YouTube channel. It is on there. And then you can also find another excerpt video of my little ooey gooey thing about how awesome our church is. As Hannah says a lot, I'm hard on you guys and I'm hard on myself. I don't want you to just think I'm hard on y'all. I'm hard on me too. And as my friend, you know that. Every now and then we need some encouragement. And I was feeling and am feeling really grateful for our church family and wanted to express that the other day. And so I mentioned that in my message. It had to do with the text as we were looking at Ezra chapter 8. And we'll be doing that again this Sunday. But yeah, I want to just kind of break down and flesh out. And by the way, Lee did a great job. We are not trying to trump anything that he said or anything like that. We're just trying to add to it and explain a little bit more in this setting. But Lee did an excellent job. So well spoken. I thought his verbiage was so great. And I think it's good to be able to have this conversation with you, Allen, for our listeners, because you've got a lot of experience. The education wing that we're now in, you were a part of back in 96, 97, late 90s. You were a part of that. So you do have some experience when it comes to this whole building thing. And how it goes about that. And just to preface for our listeners, we do have a building planning team. This isn't like a formal thing that was selected by the church. Last year, when we originally voted to start doing all this, Dwayne Johnson assembled a group of individuals. It's about 12 individuals from all different demographics of our church, young, old, in between, male and female. And so all assembled together to be able to start having conversations about the building and start working on some things. And so we've had a lot of tests done across the street, a lot of that, preliminaries done. We do have some plans of the building, the multi-purpose facility. We showed a video last year, a cool little video about what that looked like. And of course, you were able to see Sunday another slide of what it looks like. And so the big thing about what Lee, well, before I say that, Allen, your initial thoughts on Lee's conversation with us as a church. And I will add this, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder. I really, really love Sunday's service because we had, and most of our services are now like this, but they weren't like this before. What I mean by that is, while we're a pastor-led church, when we're in service or even when we're serving in the community, it takes all of us together. And sure, I'm the leader, but I don't have to do all the praying. I don't have to do all the singing. I don't have to do all the business conversation like Lee had, which was more of a visionary conversation. But Sunday we had Lee speaking, Kaylin Johnson led in worship, and Dante Freeman led in prayer. And then I came and brought the message. And all four, me included, all four of those people are under 33 years old. That's pretty neat. That's really neat to be able to have that and to see that.
That is a pretty unique thing for our church as well. I mean, there's all during my lifetime, our congregation was much older.
Yeah.
And things were done a lot different.
Yeah, sure.
And as I have grown old through all of this, I've learned that the old ways aren't necessarily the best ways, or just because we've always done something doesn't mean we necessarily serves us as good now.
Correct.
I was on the conference call with our initial approach to the bank that we first talked to, our bank, which incidentally
for this new building,
for the Field of Dreams building.
Okay, that one. Okay, I just want to specify.
The reason we are banking with this bank is because they had the best deal on financing the 94, 95 building.
Okay.
Okay, so usually what happens is they'll say, if you're talking to a bank that's not your bank, and typically speaking, you'll get a better rate from those guys because they want your deposit accounts.
Yeah, especially a church.
And so that's the deal they made. So we did. We moved our deposit accounts and we started doing business with them. And you think there's a lot of stuff that goes into a home mortgage. A commercial loan is a totally different animal. And it's nowhere near as simple as a 30-year conventional rate mortgage. There is so many things in there. These banks don't want to get tied into a long-term commitment. When we financed the 94, 95 building, it was basically a 10-year loan, but they had what they called a 7-year call. And so at the end of 7, you paid this amount, a fixed amount for 7 years. And at the end of that 7 years, they decided whether they wanted to continue that relationship or if they wanted all the money.
Ooh.
And so you had to be prepared to get that money together in the event they call the loan.
Were you guys prepared?
I don't think we really made it much past 7. I think we were
Paid it
so
off.
so far ahead
It's good.
until we were able to foresee, and they foresaw that as well. And usually what they do is they make their approval of a loan contingent on finding some sort of a long-term future financing. We talked with several banks then, and we will probably talk with several banks now.
Yeah.
And it's about, they all want basically the same, but they want it wrapped different.
Yeah, and I do want to tell listeners, this is all preliminary conversations, but I will say that what I have seen, we started this building fund initiative in May. And since then, our building fund is now at $346,000, approximately. That's online and in-person giving. And so with that rate, if we're able to keep that rate and continue to give like that, even if we have a mortgage and we can keep that consistent income to the building fund while still keeping the budget, that's awesome. I think that's really going to help us, especially in the eyes of the bank, what we've been able to do during this series. And I just want to encourage our listeners, we're going to have to keep that up.
Right.
With the mortgage payment, not just for the down payment that we're working on now, but for that. And let me add this too. We do have, and this is something we would have to vote on as a church whenever this time comes. It's not something we got to do right now, but we do have approximately $1.2 million in our reserves in different accounts, some CDs and some things that are able to make us a little bit of money. And I won't get into the specifics of all that, but you do have to consider that we could vote on some of that to be able to use as well towards the building, that we could vote on as a church to move, because all that is undesignated. Not all that. A lot of that, most of that is undesignated money that we have been able to save over the years. A lot of it has come in the last 10 years that we've been able to do that. So we've really done good with that, which is really exciting. And all that is also to say that not only are we ahead of our budget giving as of right now for this year, Alan, the budget that we had approved last year for this year was the largest budget in church history. And we're on pace to go over our budget again. And that's pretty exciting.
Well,
kind of where we are financially.
One of the things that you're going to have to think about is in the future, the footprint of this building and the cost and the expense of maintaining this building. And in those maintenance costs, you have to think about things like electricity, water, insurance, probably the biggest. And that's pretty much going to double because the building that we're building, and so those costs, there will be additional.
And staff.
Yeah.
You're going to have to have more staff. Yeah. And we have talked a lot about that, but I guess where I'm getting at is our progression of where we are now makes me really confident that we're in the right direction. Our people are giving, and I want to encourage you to the bank, as Lee said yesterday. He said the bank's going to look at our attendance on Sundays and Wednesdays, and they're also going to look at the percentage of our givers, how many are attending versus how many of those attenders give. And so if you're not giving right now, I think it's a great time to start because it's going to help us be able to get a better rate, the best rate possible. And that's what we want to be able to do to be a good steward. This is not the first time that the church has borrowed money, but I understand with the economy the way that it is a scary time. But can I remind you that the sanctuary that you grew up in, Allen, was built and financed and paid for in a very bad economy coming out of the Great Depression. And by the way, the Great Depression in South Carolina began in 1918 and did not end until the war. the building that you grew up going to church in was built in 1939, and your parents were a very young married couple when all that was going on. So that's something to think about too, is that when God has moved in this church in the past buildings, it hasn't been when it's all rosy and everything's going good. And a lot of the times, we've even seen this in the Bible, in God's Word. When God moves, sometimes He moves in difficult times to stretch our faith and cause us to have to trust and obey Him. So Alan kind of already mentioned this, but Lee mentioned this on Sunday. Some of the finance crew of our building planning team, that the sub team of that, has met with our partner bank, which I believe is First Citizens. Is that right?
Currently it is.
And so we've met with them. We got great positive feedback, but we are exploring other options and looking at that. And so kind of the big thing that Lee mentioned on Sunday was the estimated cost of this building. And I love the way that Lee worded it. And, of course, he rooted it in Matthew 19:26. But he said, okay, guys, I know this number's big, but let me just remind you how big our God is. And I think Lee was so right in that. And so the estimated number was $4.5 to $6 million. He gave a range of the estimate of what this building's going to cost. That should encourage us to continue to give more towards the building fund and to give sacrificially. And that's a big number, but Alan, I was shocked. I didn't hear a gasp in the room like I expected. I think folks were kind of anticipating that to a certain extent.
Well, I think a number of folk are at points in their lives where they understand what it costs to do business, so to speak. I was looking at just one of the pieces of paperwork we have to fill out with the bank is a religious organization questionnaire kind of thing. And they ask about your membership, but they also wanted to know the age of your membership.
Yeah.
And they want the list of top 10 givers.
Really?
Not their names, but the amounts they give.
Okay.
And then they break it down, what percentage of your givers give. It's really weird the way they break it down. And basically what they're looking at is they're looking at the future.
Yeah.
They want to know your capacity, not just now, but they want to know how you're going to handle, because they know that you're going to have, in addition to your regular budget amounts you need, you're going to now have a payment.
Yep. Absolutely. And so he talked about that. He gave a review of what was given in August. And so $15,856 given in person, $6,270 online. And so that's a little over $22,000 in the month of August, which is really solid. If we could keep that going, even when we have the mortgage, that's pretty solid. That's pretty good.
Yep.
That if we could kind of keep that and maybe a little bit more than that, because there were 5 Sundays in August. And so updated building fund, $346,500. Of course, we have some upcoming things. The chili cook-off is going to be part of a building fundraiser, as well as a church yard sale and a silent auction that's going to be happening. So we are trying to raise money in different ways. Be a part of that. I would love for us to hit $500,000 before the new year. You know, I think we've got plenty of time to be able to do that. Just can't wait to see what God's going to keep doing. So any other thoughts on what Lee shared the other day?
I think Lee did a very good job. And that's another thing people don't realize is the expense incurred in building is the building is one thing, but the site prep is astronomical.
I agree. All right, well, we are going to get you guys out of here. Thank you guys for tuning in, episode 81. Not sure what we've got in store for you next week, but we'll make sure it's fun, exciting, and interesting, and you'll want to tune in for episode 82 of the Menorah Podcast. If you are in the area, we want to see you tomorrow night at the historic Doug Bennett Stadium. The undefeated Swansea Tigers are going to be taking on the undefeated Pillion Panthers, and they're Panthers, right?
2 local schools,
yeah. So
Tigers and Panthers.
Yeah, and so the head football coach of your Swansea Tigers, Willie Fox, is actually an alumni of Pillion. Started his career there. Last week, he defeated his previous coaching spot, which was Wagner Sally, with a commanding win there. We'll see what our Tigers look like for, we've already had a home opener, but this is really going to feel like the home opener because this is a Friday night game. The previous game was on a Thursday night, changed due to weather on week 0, and they played Mid-Carolina, ended up defeating them. And so looking forward to tomorrow night, and a crew from your church, First Baptist Gaston, will be there calling the football game over the PA system. Myself, Noel Pound, Matt Barfield, and Allen Ott will be there. So we want you to come on out and support the Tigers, and really looking forward to that, Allen.
Yep, it'll be a good night.
So we will either see you tomorrow or we will see you Sunday. Either way, we want to see you soon. Thank you for tuning in to the 81st episode of the Menorah Podcast, the podcast that seeks to share the light, speak the light, and send the light of Jesus Christ across the airways of the internet. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.